You are sitting across from someone you love, or perhaps someone you once loved. The air in the room is thick, heavy, a physical presence you could cut with a knife. Words have been said, yes, but they are not the problem now. They hang in the space between you like ghosts, their power fading. The problem is what has replaced them, an abyss of quiet. It is not a peaceful silence, not the comfortable quiet of shared understanding. No, this is an architected void, a structured emptiness designed to be a container for your own rising panic. Your own voice echoes in your mind, replaying every syllable you uttered, searching for the fatal flaw, the misstep that triggered this nothingness. You feel a frantic urge to speak, to fill the void, to throw any sound into it just to see if it will be swallowed, or if it will echo back, proving you still exist. But you know, intuitively, that any word you offer now will be a sacrifice to a silent, unappeasable God. This is silence as a presence, an occupation. It is a form of psychic warfare so subtle, so devastatingly effective, that it leaves no visible scars. A shout, an insult, a thrown plate, these are overt acts of aggression. They create a clean wound, something you can point to, something you can name. There is a perverse honesty in open conflict. But this is different. This is the slow, creeping poison of annulment. The person opposite you has not left the room, but they have evicted you from their reality. They are physically present, but psychically absent. And in their withdrawal, they have taken a piece of you with them. What is this void that speaks louder than any shout? When did an absence become a presence so dense it suffocates the room? This is the paradox of weaponized silence. It is an act of profound aggression that masquerades as passivity. It is the ultimate power play, for how can you fight an opponent who refuses to even acknowledge the battle? You are left shadowboxing with your own anxieties, your own guilt, your own desperate need for connection, while your adversary sits enthroned in untouchable stillness. You feel your own identity begin to fray. The silence acts as a mirror, but it is a black mirror, reflecting only your own desperate face, contorted by the questions it refuses to answer. Am I unreasonable? Did I imagine the slight? Am I going mad? The silence doesn't say no. It doesn't say yes. It says something far more terrifying. It says nothing. And in that nothing, you are left utterly, terrifyingly alone. This experience is not confined to the lover's quarrel. It is the colleague who ghosts you on a critical project, the family member who greets your vulnerability with a vacant stare, the group that shuns one of its own, not with jeers, but with a chilling, collective indifference. It is a strategy of erasure. It is an attempt to unperson you, to render you so insignificant that you are not even worthy of a response. So we must ask the great and terrible question that this silence forces upon us. When a human being uses emptiness as their weapon of choice, what are they truly wielding? Are they demonstrating strength, a stoic self-control that places them above the fray? Or is this silent fortress built not of strength, but of the most profound and brittle weakness? Is the silence a shield for a self too fragile to withstand the impact of another's reality, another's pain, another's truth? And for you, the one on the receiving end, the question becomes even more urgent. How do you survive an attack that denies its own existence? How do you defend yourself against an emptiness that threatens to consume you whole? This weapon was not forged in a single moment of anger. Its cold, hard steel was tempered in the ancient, hidden fires of human fear, the terror of vulnerability, and the desperate, often pathological, need for control. To understand how to disarm it, we must first dare to descend into the psychological forge where it was created. If these questions resonate in the quiet, echoing chambers of your own experience, then you have found a home here. We journey into the depths not for the comfort of easy answers, but for the liberation of profound understanding. Subscribe and join the inquiry, because the path to your best self often leads through the very shadows you've been taught to fear.
So we descend. We step into that psychological forge, and the first thing we notice is not the heat of rage, but the chilling cold of fear. The one who wields silence as a weapon is not a master of war, but a terrified sovereign of a very small, very fragile kingdom, the kingdom of the self. At its root, this behavior is a desperate, primitive defense mechanism against what psychoanalysts call a narcissistic injury, an ego so brittle it cannot withstand the slightest perceived criticism or dissent, fractures. Confrontation to such a person is not a dialogue, it is an existential threat. To engage with your pain, your perspective, your anger would be to admit their own imperfection, to acknowledge a world that does not revolve entirely around their own needs. And so they retreat behind the impenetrable walls of the silent fortress. From this hollow keep, they can maintain the illusion of control, of superiority. Their silence is not a sign of strength, but a declaration of their own unbearable fragility. They are the knight of infinite resignation, as the great Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard might say, giving up on the world of authentic, messy human connection to preserve a perfect, sterile, and ultimately dead image of themselves. This is the tyranny of the weak. The silence is a profound act of passive aggression, a hostility so veiled in non-action that the perpetrator can maintain perfect, plausible deniability. I'm not doing anything, they might say, and on a literal level, they are correct. But psychologically, they are doing everything. They are constructing a cage of negation around you. The psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott spoke of a false self, a compliant, artificial persona created to protect a vulnerable true self from a world perceived as hostile. The silent aggressor lives within this false self. Their stillness is a mask, and behind it, their true self is often a maelstrom of unresolved childhood wounds, terror of abandonment, and an incapacity for genuine emotional reciprocity. They learned, somewhere in the dim and distant past, that emotional expression is dangerous, that needs are a liability. So they perfected the art of the shutdown. They do not give you silence because they have nothing to say. They give you silence because it is the only language they have left that feels safe for them, a language that ensures they can hurt you before you can hurt them. This brings us to the existential core of the problem, a truth articulated with chilling clarity by Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre told us that our very sense of self is forged in the days of the other. It is when another person looks at us, truly sees us, that we are solidified into a being for them. This look can feel like a judgment. It can objectify us, but it is also the very thing that confirms our existence in a shared reality. The silent weapon is the strategic withdrawal of this look. The person opposite you is not just being quiet. They are actively refusing to see you. They are attempting a kind of metaphysical murder. Their silence is a profound existential statement. In my world, you will now cease to exist. I will turn you into an object, a piece of furniture in the room of my grievance, and I will be the only subject, the only one who matters. It is the ultimate act of what Jean-Paul Sartre called bad faith, a denial of the fundamental human condition that we are all subjects, free and responsible, condemned to exist in a world with other free and responsible subjects. They are trying to escape the anxiety of this shared existence by turning you into a thing. And what of your own experience, trapped in this Sartrean nightmare? You are experiencing the full force of the absurd, a concept Albert Camus explored so brilliantly. You, a rational being with a desperate, innate need for meaning and connection, are crashing against a wall of irrational, meaningless silence. Your every attempt to reason, to connect, to solve, is met with a void that simply does not compute. This is the existential vertigo of the absurd. You are Sisyphus, pushing the boulder of your words up a hill only to have it roll back down into a valley of quiet indifference. The silent person creates a small, absurd universe and makes you its sole frantic inhabitant. They become the indifferent cosmos, and you are left screaming into the void, questioning your own sanity for expecting a reply. But this psychic poison does not remain contained within the moment of conflict. It seeps into the soil of your mind, subtly altering how you see the world, how you trust others, and even how you perceive yourself. The hidden problem has unseen consequences, and they are shaping your reality even now, in ways you are about to discover.
That psychic poison we spoke of, it does not announce its arrival. It is a colorless, odorless toxin that begins its work by hijacking the very machinery of your mind. Your brain, an organ evolved over millennia for social connection and pattern recognition, cannot process this deliberate void as a simple absence of sound. To your brain, social information is as vital as food or water. When it is suddenly and deliberately withheld, your neural circuits scream in protest. Neurologists can show you this on a brain scan. The anterior cingulate cortex, the very same region that lights up when you experience physical pain, ignites with activity. Let me be clear, this is not a metaphor. The agony you feel is not all in your head. It is a real, measurable neurological event. Your brain is interpreting this emotional abandonment as a threat to your survival, and it floods your system with the stress hormone cortisol. This isn't the sharp, clean jolt of a fight-or-flight response. It is a slow, corrosive drip of anxiety that impairs your memory, fogs your judgment, and weakens your resolve. You are being biologically undermined. This neurological vulnerability is then expertly exploited by your own cognitive biases. Your mind abhors a vacuum, and it will rush to fill the silent space with a narrative. But it is not an impartial storyteller. Guided by the deep-seated negativity bias, the evolutionary tick that makes us pay more attention to threats than to blessings, your brain begins to construct the worst possible story. You become the villain in your own mind. You compulsively scan your recent past, and your confirmation bias, like a corrupt prosecutor, presents only the evidence that supports your guilt. Every misspoken word, every awkward gesture becomes proof of your profound inadequacy. The silent aggressor doesn't need to build a case against you. They have outsourced the entire prosecution to the predictable flaws in your own cognition. You are placed under the intense glare of the spotlight effect, that crippling feeling that your every flaw is being magnified and judged, and you are left to convict and sentence yourself in a courtroom where your accuser never has to utter a single word. Our cultural conditioning makes us exquisitely susceptible to this form of attack. Many of us are trained from a young age to be peacemakers, to value harmony above all else. We are taught that it is our responsibility to soothe, to mend, to bridge the divide. This very virtue, this compassionate impulse, becomes the lever of our own torment. The silent person banks on your sense of responsibility. They know you will exhaust yourself trying to fix a problem they have no intention of solving. You will offer apologies for crimes you didn't commit. You will chip away pieces of your own truth to build a bridge back to them,
not realizing they have already burned their side of it to the ground. Society further aids the aggressor by romanticizing a false image of strength. We praise the strong, silent type, mistaking emotional constipation for stoic dignity. This cultural myth provides the perfect cover for their behavior, allowing them to frame their relational violence as a mark of superior self-control, while you are made to feel hysterical, needy, and demanding for simply wanting a human response. The unseen consequences are not just momentary pain or confusion. The true consequence is the slow, imperceptible erosion of your own soul. Prolonged exposure to this tactic rewires you. You begin to walk on eggshells, not just around the other person, but in your life. You start to silence yourself preemptively, shrinking your thoughts, your desires, your very presence to avoid another withdrawal. Your spontaneity withers. Your laughter becomes hesitant. The silence from without becomes a silence from within. This is the ultimate victory for the aggressor. They no longer need to impose the silence because you have learned to impose it on yourself. You have been fighting desperately to get them to open their locked door, begging for the key holder to grant you entry into their world. You have rattled the bars and screamed at the guard, believing your freedom lies on the other side. But what if this is the great illusion? What if the prison isn't their silence, but your compulsive, desperate need for their sound? What if the key to your freedom has been in your own pocket this entire time?
The key has been in your pocket all along, but to use it, you must perform an act of radical, terrifying alchemy. You must learn to transform their weapon into your shield. The great and terrible power of their silence comes from a single source: your participation. You have been playing a game you cannot win, a game whose rules were written by a fearful tyrant to ensure their own victory. The rules are simple. Their silence is the void, and you must fill it. Your desperation is the fuel. Your pleas are the offering. Your pain is the proof of their power. To break free, you do not need a better strategy. You need a revolution. You must refuse to play the game. This is not about giving them the silent treatment back. That is simply picking up the same filthy weapon and engaging in the same soul-destroying bottle. No, this is something far more profound. This is about reclaiming your own psychic space. It is about a unilateral declaration of peace, not with them, but with yourself, in the landscape they have tried to turn into a war zone. The first step in this revolution is a seismic shift in perspective, one that the Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus perfected 2 millennia ago. They taught that the source of our suffering is not what happens to us, but our judgment about what happens to us. You have been judging their silence as a reflection of your worth. You have judged it as a problem you must solve. The radical shift is this: their silence is not about you. It is a raw, unfiltered broadcast of their own inner chaos, their own emotional limitations, their own profound and tragic inability to connect. It is a symptom of their disease, not a verdict on your character. When you truly internalize this, the emotional hook is pulled out. You cease to be the victim of their action and become an observer of their condition. You can look upon the silent fortress not with fear or anger, but with a kind of detached compassion, the way a doctor might observe a fever, a sign of a deeper illness that has nothing to do with the doctor herself. You must say to yourself, "This silence that is being offered to me, this is not a nourishment I require. This is not a conversation I need to have. This is the sound of a door slamming shut, not on me, but on the person's own capacity for love." With this newfound perspective,
you can begin the practical work of building a new way of thinking. This requires what the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called a revaluation of all values. You have been valuing their response, their validation, their participation. You must now revalue your own peace, your own sanity, your own emotional autonomy. When the silence descends, instead of leaning in, you must lean out. Turn your focus away from the black hole of their presence and towards the rich, vibrant universe of your own life. Pick up a book, listen to music, go for a walk, engage with a friend who is capable of reciprocity. This is not a performance for their benefit. It is not an act of pretending you don't care. It is the genuine, disciplined act of redirecting your life force away from a barren wasteland and toward fertile ground. You are taking your energy back. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, built his entire therapeutic philosophy, logotherapy, on this principle. He wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that the last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. The silent aggressor can control the emotional climate of the room, but they cannot control the climate of your mind unless you grant them that power. You are reclaiming your ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose where you direct your attention and how you find your meaning. History provides us with powerful examples. Think of the great leaders who faced down the immense, intimidating silence of the establishment. Nelson Mandela, in his prison cell, was subjected to a silence designed to break him, to erase him from the world. But he refused to participate in his own unpersoning. He turned his attention inward, to his principles, to his vision for the future. He did not beg his jailers for recognition. He cultivated a sense of self so powerful that it could withstand their attempt at negation. He broke free not by changing their minds, but by mastering his own. This is your model. You are not trying to win an argument with the person opposite you. You are trying to win your own soul back from the clutches of their pathology. You stop asking, "What must I do to make you speak?" And you start asking, "What must I do to be whole, regardless of whether you ever speak again?" This question, this single powerful reframing, changes everything. It is the sound of your own key turning in your own lock. The door to their prison swings open, not because they opened it for you, but because you realize with a sudden, breathtaking clarity that you were the one with the power to walk away all along. You are discovering something not just revolutionary, but evolutionary. You are evolving beyond the need for a reality co-signed by those who are fundamentally incapable of sharing one. And this leads to the final, most powerful realization of all, one that will not just set you free, but will redefine freedom itself.
And so you stand, key in hand, at the threshold of a freedom you have won for yourself. But the final revelation is not about your escape. It is about the nature of the prison itself. It is a realization so profound, so paradigm-shattering, that it will retroactively reorder every memory of your struggle. The great illusion was that you were fighting to repair a connection. You believed there was a beautiful, shared us that their silence had fractured, a sacred space that their withdrawal had violated. You have been mourning the loss of a home you believed you once shared. The final, most powerful realization is this: the home was never real. For a person who uses silence as a weapon, genuine intimacy is an intolerable threat. The connection you thought you had was not a relationship, it was a performance. They were an actor on a stage, and their silence is not the end of the play. It is the moment they have finally dropped character and revealed the emptiness behind the curtain. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. Their silence is not the weapon that is hurting you now. It is the terrible, clarifying truth that unveils all the pain that came before. It is the most honest communication they have ever offered. It is a confession, stated in the purest terms, of their own limitations. It says, I cannot meet you here. I cannot hold your reality alongside my own. I cannot withstand the demands of true intimacy. You see with a devastating clarity that you were not fighting to save a relationship in these last moments. You have been fighting your entire time with them to create one, trying to build a cathedral of connection with a person who never gave you anything but sand. All those moments of confusion, all those times you felt you were going crazy, all those arguments that circled back to nothing, it all snaps into focus. You were not misunderstanding them. You were understanding them perfectly, but you could not accept the terrifying truth of what you were seeing, a profound and unbridgeable emptiness. This is the abyss that Søren Kierkegaard wrote of. Their silence pushes you to the edge of an existential cliff. The terror of the void begs you to leap backwards, to retreat into the familiar painful patterns of pleading, bargaining, and self-blame. You are tempted to do anything to restore the illusion, because even a painful illusion feels safer than the vertigo of this truth. But the ultimate leap of faith is not a leap back to them, nor is it a leap into the arms of a celestial God. It is a leap forward into the full, terrifying, and glorious sovereignty of your own self. It is the radical acceptance that your reality, your feelings, and your worth are valid and absolute, requiring no external signature, no cosigner, no validation from a person who is incapable of offering it. You cease to be a character in their chaotic drama and become the sole, undisputed author of your own story. This is the ultimate act of self-creation. In the silence they have created, a new sound begins to emerge, faint at first, then stronger. It is the sound of your own voice. It is the voice you have been silencing for months or years out of fear of their withdrawal. It is the thoughts you never spoke, the boundaries you never set, the truths you swallowed to keep a false peace. Their void, the space they created to unperson you, becomes your sanctuary. Their absence becomes the fertile ground for your own presence. True connection, you now realize, is not the absence of conflict. It is the sacred commitment to the work of repair. It is the courage to use clumsy words to build bridges across the chasms of misunderstanding. It is the mutual promise to never, ever use another's humanity as a hostage. In the end, you might even feel a strange, quiet gratitude for the weapon they used against you. For in wielding their profound and terrible quiet, they gave you the one gift they never intended, the gift of yourself. The question is no longer, how can I make them listen? The question that will define the rest of your life is, now that I can finally hear myself, what truths will I begin to speak? If you are ready to listen to what your own voice has to say, and to engage in the conversations that truly matter, subscribe to this channel. Our shared journey into the depths has only just begun.